Great day, grade 4 students. Welcome to our scientific class with Miss Shara. Let us start our day with our work plan. So let's read. First, science bits, Star Wars, discussion, thumb it. All right, for our science bits. Almost every child remembers the first time Luke Skywalker activated his lightsaber. The brilliant fluorescent glow and the powerful humming noise. It was Star Wars tech and science fiction rolled up into one cool weapon. So do you know this guy? This is Darth Vader. Yeah, so the audience or the people's collective imagination went wild and it was fun. The characters in Star Wars impacted people of all ages. Their wacky names, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and endearing habits such as the worried C-3PO, I love you 3000, piqued the interest of the young and not so young. But what really made the movies memorable have been the incredible weapons, spaceships, and technology. Who could forget the hyperdrive? Hyperdrives allow starships to travel faster than the speed of light, crossing space through the alternate dimension of hyperspace. We are all that is already possible now because we have the project Perseverance from NASA. But what caught my attention in watching Star Wars is when they say, "May the Force be with you." So what is this force? Let's find out. Let us read our learning targets for today. First, let me read it for you. I can describe the different type of forces. I can explain the relationship between force and weight. So the questions are, what is force? What happens to an object when force is applied on it? If you leave your ball on your table and go to sleep, will it be where you left it when you wake up? Of course it will. But what will make it move? Correct. Force. So what is force? A force is a push or pull upon an object resulting from the object's interaction with another object. Whenever there is an interaction between two objects, there is a force upon each of the objects. So what are the keywords? Push and pull. So force is a push and pull. Force can make objects move. It can help us go places. Can you think of other uses of force? Force is involved in everything that you do. Look around you. Can you see evidences of forces acting on objects or activities that require the use of force? Look in front of you. What example can you see that requires force? Right? Just like in the Star Wars, may the force be with you. So you need force in order to have movements. So force is an influence to cause the motion of a body. Motion means there's a change in position of an object over time. So there is a change. So you need force to have change or to make a change. There are two types of forces. The different forces are contact force and non-contact force. When you push a computer mouse that is sitting on a flat surface, this is an example of contact force between your hand and the mouse. The mouse would not move unless a force, in this case, your hand was in contact with it. Right? Other examples, if you will look around you, includes using your hand to pull out a desk chair so that you can sit down, or getting a glass of water when you want to drink. So those are example of contact force. What is contact force? So contact force is needed to be in direct contact with the object to apply force. So the first type of force is contact force. Second type of force is non-contact force. And this one, it does not need to be in direct contact with the object to apply force. We are going to talk more about non-contact force in our second session. So look at the cable cars in the picture. Did you know that each of these cars does not have an engine or motor? Each car moves through a strong force from the cable that is rotated by motor off board. This is an example of contact force. Contact force is a force that is applied by objects in contact with each other. Look at the man kicking the ball. So when he kicks the ball, the foot made contact with the ball, so it moves. So the contact force acts on a point of direct contact between the two objects. This force can either be continuous as a continuous force or can be momentary in the form of an impulse. Contact force is governed by Newton's law. So contact force is responsible for most of the interactions we experience in daily life. So contact force is an external agent to start up motion or to stop motion. Contact force can be classified into four. The first one is applied force. Applied force is a force that is applied to an object by a person or another object. So these are the example of applied force. If you will look at the picture, look at the kids pushing the car to make it move. And look at that man, the way he lifted it up. So he needs to apply force in order to move the dumbbells. And look at this one. The man from below is pulling the car. And the last example is the carabao pulling the plow. So there is a push and pull action. So those are example of applied force. Now let us read this verse. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. What do you mean by infirmities? These are the uh, characteristics of peoples that makes them weak. And for example, you are the strong one. You know how to draw. You know how to sing, and your classmate is not. What will you do? What kind of force are you going to use? Are you going to push your classmate away or are you going to pull your classmate up? Are you going to teach your classmate or like assist your classmates when you are in the breakout room or for example where we are having activities? You teach your classmates how to sing or how to draw for examples. So each of us has a force within us. Are we going to push or pull with regards to this quotation? Are we the one who are strong, who are helping those who are weak? Which one are you? Next is the normal force. So normal force is exerted on an object when it is constant with another object. So if you will look at the illustration, there is an old man standing. So the floor pushes upward on the person. So the force on the persons are balance. Gravity pulls downward on the person. That's why he is standing still. So you call this as normal force. The normal force is the force that surface exert to prevent solid objects from passing through each other. Normal force is a contact force. It makes sense that the force is perpendicular to the surface since the normal force is what prevents solid objects from passing through each other. If there is no normal force, the old man will get under this, no, under the floor. And so look at this illustration. There's a book on top of the table. So you call this as normal force. Look at the arrow. So the reaction force on the table is 5 Newton. So Newton is the unit used for force. And then the weight of the book is also 5 Newton. So they are equal. That's why the book is not falling down the table. So if it's balanced, it is called normal force. Here are some example of normal force. An apple on top of the table. The man leaning on the wall. Look at the boy sleeping. So he's not falling down under the bed. So it's a normal force, a balance force. The next one is friction force. Friction is a force, the resistance of motion when one object rubs against another. Whenever two objects rub against each other, they cause friction. So friction works against the motion and acts in the opposite direction. Friction is force exerted by a surface against the motion of a body across its surface. Right? So look at the diagram. The man is pushing a box. So the force the man applies and the static friction under the box. Now, if you would like to experience what friction is, you can hold your hands together, put them together, and rub them fast, 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 very fast. So that is an example of friction. So where can we see example of friction in our daily lives? Friction is the reason why your car comes to a standstill if you don't press the accelerator. The frictional force is opposing the rotation of the wheels of your car. Therefore, if you leave the accelerator, the friction slowly removes all the force from the car, and when it has removed the last bit of force, so it moves. So moving car is an example of friction force, right? Another example is when a runner's foot comes in contact with the ground. Friction occurs between the two objects. Friction is the force that opposes motion and allows the runner's foot or shoe to grip the ground for balance. There's another example, holding a can of soft drink. So the can of the soft drink is not falling down because the reaction of the hand and the side of the can or the friction, okay, allows the can to stay in your hand. So these are example of friction force. The next type of contact force is air resistance. What is air resistance? Here on Earth, we tend to take air resistance for granted. We just assume that when we throw a ball, launch an aircraft or spacecraft, or fire a bullet from a gun, that the act of traveling through our atmosphere will naturally slow it down. But what is the reason for this? Just how is air able to slow an object down whether it is in the free fall or in flight. By definition, air resistance describes the forces that are in opposition to the relative motion of an object as it passes through the air. So air resistance is a force that is caused by air. The force acts in the opposite direction to an object moving through the air. So air resistance is a force that slows down objects that are moving through the air. This is because the air is made of particles, like any other material, and these wrap on the surface of a falling object. The resulting friction slowing down the rate of acceleration. So acceleration means speed and distance and movement of the object in the air due to the downward pull of gravitational force. So there is a relationship between air resistance and gravity. The greater the surface area of the object, the greater air resistance. Obviously, the more surface there is, the greater the number of particles that the falling object is likely to collide with, resulting in increased friction. The faster an object is falling through air, the greater the air resistance. The faster that the object is falling increases not only the frequency of impact, but the force of impact, which results in greater friction forces acting between the object and the air. There are many cases where we need air to get in the way. For example, parachutes. Parachutes rely on air colliding with the large area of the canopy. We also have wind generators move because air exerts a force on the blades. Look at this girl. Hair blown by the wind. These are examples of air resistance. Right? And flying kites. Although air does have a low density, if we can bump into enough of it, okay, and if the air is moving fast enough, it will exert a considerable force. So the moving air is not in itself a force. The air doesn't carry a force simply by moving. However, when the air collides with the surface, both the air and the surface experience a force. So that is what you call air resistance. A force from the surface acts on the air to slow it down. There is a force in the opposite direction acting on the surface. It is this force on the surface which drives the objects flying or the sailboat through the water. Next is tension force. What is tension? Tension is a force along the length of a medium, especially a force carried by flexible mediums such as a rope or cable. Tension can be defined as an action-reaction pair of forces acting at each end of the said elements. So while considering a rope, the tension force is felt by every section of the rope in both the direction, apart from the end point. So look at the picture there. They are pulling the rope. So the end points experience tension on one side and the force from the weight attached. Throughout the string, the tension varies in some circumstances. These are examples of tension force. A rope on a boat, rope with a pulley, rope and a sled. So what is the common word? Rope. So there should be a rope or a string, no? All right. Teacher says forces depends on how you do actions. Can you now define what is force? Force is a push and pull. right? Can you now explain or describe the different types of force? We have the contact and non-contact forces. Contact forces is classified into five. We have the applied force, normal force, air resistance, friction force, and tension force. Now, among these forces, we can say that it depends on how you do actions. Now, how are you going to use force, right, in your daily activities? Can you now identify the different example of forces that you can see around you? I'm sure you are, all right? So once again, this is teacher Shara saying, be careful of the forces that you are using. May it be push or pull. So let's remember to pull all those that are weak, then push things that can help us be stronger. Another great day, grade 4 student. Thank you very much. You are the best. This is your scientific class with Miss Shara. If you have any question, feel free to message me. I love you guys. See you next time.